to the ethnic common to the lecture on the ethnic communities in Bangladesh, their struggles against the adverse impact of climate change. It is indeed an exciting time for the third cohort of the Gobeshona Global Conference organized by the International Center for Climate Change and Development. As this conference is gradually evolving and continue keeping us motivated and being responsive to turn research into action. My name is Nandan Mukherjee, and I'm leading the Adaptation and Resilience Unit in the UNESCO Center for Water Law, Policy and Science at the University of Dundee, as well as I'm also associated with the Center for Climate Change and Environmental Research at BRAC University in Bangladesh. I'll be serving as your moderator today. For those who are participating in the event, I have only 3 housekeeping issues. Please mute your microphone when you are not speaking, if possible. Also, please be mindful of any kind of background noise or distractions around you when will be presenting or listening. And finally, try to turn on your camera and adjust your camera and lighting so that we can see ourselves properly. I'd like to give you an idea of what you can expect and what we hope to achieve over the next 90-minute session. The main objective of this session will be to share the research findings and find an inclusive pathway to incorporate climate change issues on ethnic communities and how we can mainstream those agendas in the national policies and legislative framework. You'll be hearing a keynote presentation from Ms. Rofa Khanum on this very timely subject, followed by a distinguished panel discussion, followed by the question and answer session. But before we get started, I'd like to take a few minutes of your time to introduce our speaker and distinguished panelists. I will start with the panelists. Our first panelist, Dr. Dijen Mullik, works as the research fellow in the Bangladesh Center for Advanced Studies. Dr. Mullik has been involved in developing approaches and methods of several studies and research projects, combining qualitative and quantitative tool techniques. Most of his research, knowledge management, and advocacy mainly focus on poverty alleviation, livelihood promotion, gender equality, and vulnerable communities. Our next panelist would be Ms. Sharmin Nilami, who is a professor in the Department of Economics at Jahangirnagar University. Ms. Nilami's interests include gender dimensions in climate change adaptation, migration and energy sectors, capacity building advocacy, etc. She was one of the lead authors of the Bangladesh National Conservation Strategy. Our next panelist is Ms. Snigdha Sarkar, who is a student representing the Malwa ethnic communities from the Panchbibi Upazila of Joypurhat district. She is a final year student in the Sociology Department of Rabindra University, Bangladesh. In the list of distinguished panels, Mr. Dharitri Kumar Sarkar, Deputy Secretary from Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change comes next. He was directly involved in preparing the updated nationally determined contribution in 2021, Bangladesh Climate Change and Strategy and Action Plan, the updated one in 2022, National Adaptation Plan, and Mujib Climate Prosperity Plan of Bangladesh. Dharitri Kumar Sarkar is the adaptation contact point for the UNFCCC from Bangladesh. Our panelist is Professor Ainun Nishat, advisor of Center for Climate Change and Environmental Research at BRAC University. Professor Nishat is recognized as a pioneering scientist and eminent academic in water resources management and climate change in Bangladesh. Previously, he was the representative of IOC Bangladesh, acting as a senior advisor of climate change Asia region of the IOCN. He was a vital member of climate change negotiation team for Bangladesh and representing Bangladesh at the UNFCCC since Bali, Indonesia. He was also the team leader of a national adaptation plan, which is prepared by the Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change and published recently. Last but not the least, my co-host for this session is Ms. Sharmin Nahan Nipa, who is the coordinator of Center for Climate Change and Environmental Research in BRAC University. Now, after all these introductions, I'd like to move along to our session, and I'd like to welcome Ms. Rofa Khanum, who will be speaking to us on ethnic communities and their struggles due to climate change. Ms. Rofa has more than 17 years of working experience in the field of climate change. She has been involved in the formulation of several national and local plans and policies like National Adaptation Plan, Nationally Determined Contribution, Third National Communication, and Bangladesh Climate Change Gender Action Plan, etc. Rofa.
Yeah, thank you, moderator, for giving me the floor. Just give me 1 minute to share the presentation, please.
Yeah, Rofa,
You
you
see
can see
my
your
presentation?
slides. We can see your slides, Rofa. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again, moderator. At first, I would like to thank the Gaveshana platform for giving me the opportunity to present here. Already, Dr. Mukherjee gave me my introduction. So I am Rofa, principal investigator of this research, ethnic communities in Bangladesh, their struggle against the adverse impact of climate change. The research is awarded by BRAC University Research Seed Grant Initiative in 2022. Here I would like to describe the background of this research. Climate change is not a myth anymore. It is a reality now. In the world, Bangladesh is one of the most vulnerable countries in terms of climate change impact. And according to the Global Climate Risk Index by German Watch, Bangladesh ranks 7th among the top 10 most affected countries. The sign of climate change is already apparent in many locations of the country. The figure I am showing here indicates the frequency of climate-induced disasters has increased enormously in Bangladesh over the years. The country is experiencing 6% more super cyclones than in the past 30 years. In addition, the severity of drought, floods, etc. has also increased in this country. Having said the background of this research, I would like to outline some points on why we choose these research topics. We choose this research topic because ethnic groups are one of the most vulnerable groups in the country, along with other groups, as they are heavily dependent on natural resources. Few researchers have been initiated to identify the climate change impact on them. However, maximum ethnic groups have not been studied yet. In line with this, the research was trying to identify the impact of climate change on specific ethnic communities of Bangladesh. Now I would like to introduce the research team for this study. Along with me, this research has been conducted by two co-principal investigators. One is from our MNS department of BRAC University, Ms. Moshumi Johur. And another co-principal investigator is a faculty and chairman of Rabindra University, Mr. Rifatur Rahman. In addition, we have also engaged 4 research assistants and a student of BRAC University. The team has long experience doing research in different arenas, especially in the climate change sector and ethnic issues. Dr. Nishat is, as always, he supervised the full team to conduct this research. By this figure, I would like to show how we have been conducting the research from the very beginning. We have conducted an extensive literature review to identify the information on ethnic communities like location, livelihood, rituals, culture and norms, etc. We have collected secondary information from Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics, Kudro Nitatti Cultural Academy, Brishi Netrokona office, and 64 UNO offices. After collecting secondary information, we have development tools for collecting the data and visited the study location. Now, I would like to describe some general information on ethnic communities of Bangladesh. For example, their types and number of population and geographical distribution. We have collected this information from the Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics 2022. According to BBS, the country's total number of major ethnic communities is 50, and the total population is 1.6 million. The table and the figure describe the total ethnic minority population and their percentage by division. It is seen from the table that out of the total population, the ethnic minority accounts for 1%. In case of male and females, the rate is 1.01 and 0.99% respectively. And among all the divisions, the highest ethnic minority population is noted in Chattogram and the lowest is noted in Borishal. The government of Bangladesh has prepared National Adaptation Plan, which has been submitted to United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change recently. The different ministries and departments will design the implemented climate change projects according to this NAP in the upcoming days. I am happy to inform you that CCR has helped the government to prepare this national document. In NAP, 14 hazard and 11 climate stress areas have been identified. In our research, we have considered this climate stress area and hazard map for identifying the study locations and climate change vulnerability of some specific ethnic group of Bangladesh. This helps us to ensure the policy alignment of this research. We have selected 6 locations for our research considering the climate stress areas and hazard identified in the National Adaptation Plan. We have chosen various hazard-prone zones like flood, flash flood, drought, salinity, cyclone, storm surge, and landslide to conduct the sample survey. In these hazard-prone areas, major ethnic groups are located. Considering these issues, these 6 locations have been identified, and we have conducted the sample survey in the selected location accordingly. In this slide, we have tried to show the location of the identified ethnic communities and the livelihood they are practicing. I will not describe all the information we have found, but rather mention some of the livelihood and locations of the ethnic communities we have selected for this study. For example, we can find Chakma community in many locations of the country, but the majority population are located in Chittagong Hill Tracts region of the country. This is a landslide-prone region. The main livelihood of this group is jhum cultivation. However, they are also engaged with some non-agrarian-based service. On the other hand, Khashi and Khashia community is located in Sylhet, Suramganj, Molavi Bazar, Dhaka, Rajshahi, Rangpur, Chattogram, and Hobigaj. As well, this is a flash flood-prone region. Most of them are tea workers. They also trade betel leaves, oranges, fish, and rice in the markets. Some peoples in this community are also involved in civil service and some industries also. We have also found Teli and Munda in the drought and salinity-prone areas of the country, respectively. Munda is located in Satkhira, Khulna, and Teli community is located in Rajshahi, Nauga, Chapai-Nawabganj, Mymensingh, Nato. During our literature review and field visit, we found that the cultural norms of the ethnic communities, of course, every ethnic community has their own culture and norms. However, some of the norms are similar to some ethnic groups. As I have mentioned the location of the study ethnic groups, I will be pointed out the cultural norm of that groups. Like Chakma community used to speak Tibeto-Burman languages. Now their language is Indo-European. Although most of the group's peoples are bilingual, they speak both Chakma and Bengali. Previously, Mundas were known as Bunas or jungle clearers. However, they have changed their livelihood and are now involved with agricultural labor. The mother tongue of Khashi community is Khashi, and this group is matriarchal. This community calls their village as Punjis. Lastly, Teli community is also known as Kalu and uses Bapari or Chaudhuri as surname. They are Muslims and practices customs and rituals of Muslims. According to this slide, all ethnic communities of Bangladesh have their own ritual and customs presented by months. Shautal has a festival called Ero, organized in Ashar Shravan month in Bangla for seedling for cultivation purposes so that the crop production goes well. Orao has a festival called Shahrul. It is about restoration of the nature after the winter season. In case of the heavy drought or lack of precipitation, the Ora communities observe Shahrul festives. After the crop harvesting in the rainy season and before the winter comes, Wagala festival celebrated by the Garo communities. Zoom-dependent communities observe the festival after thriving plantation. When the paddy seedling grows, communities sacrifice a pig on the Zoom land. The primary objective of this ritual is to wish for protection and high yielding of the Zoom crops, including paddy, cotton, from wild animals. Relatives and neighbors take part in this feast with the sacrificing pigs. Different type of rituals are performed among the Manipuri communities, including salutation toward God, sun in the morning, rules and regulations during lunar eclipse. They spread rice during the heavy rainfall and storm by uttering. These slides show that the selected study location have been facing different climatic hazard in different location. For example, drought is a common hazard for Naugaon and Sirajganj district, but the coastal region like Patuakhali and Satkira region are facing cyclone, storm surge, and salinity intrusion. On the other hand, Sylhet is prone to flash flood and heavy rainfall, and Bandarban is prone to landslide and erratic rainfall. However, drought is another emerging hazard in Bandarban district mentioned by the local ethnic community. Now, I am going to briefly point out the problem matrix of ethnic communities due to climate change of the selected study location. Under the matrix, we have tried to identify the impact of climate change on ethnic communities in different aspects of their life and to prepare a matrix for the problems of ethnic communities due to climate change impacts. The impacts we have identified are more or less same we have been hearing over time. The ethnic communities are also facing similar kind of impact the other vulnerable groups are facing due to climate change. However, as they have lack of knowledge about climate change, more dependency on agriculture, less adaptive capacity, and less ownership of lands, the climate-induced disasters are impacting them to a great extent. As you've seen in the previous slides, the ethnic community have several rituals and customs while are also getting affected by the climate change as season shifting in another impact of climate change. The study findings show that the ethnic community usually borrow money and get support from neighbor and support from local NGOs and government to reduce the sectoral impact of climate change. From the field visit, we have identified some of the ethnic communities have been using disaster tolerant varieties. However, the number is not that much high. Now I am going to give you a glimpse about the gap in existing policy and laws. Bangladesh is a diverse country with many languages and cultures. The Constitution of Bangladesh in the 15th Amendment on 13 June 2011, the Articles 23A states, the state shall take a step to protect and develop the unique local culture and traditional of the tribes, minor races, ethnic sects, and the communities. According to the ethnographic survey of the International Mother Language Institute of the government, there are 41 in Bangladesh. Among them, 39 are ethnic minority languages. Government has recognized that 14 ethnic minority languages have been disappeared. According to indigenous organization, at least 25 indigenous languages are at high risk of extinction. According to the Cultural Ministry, gazetted on 23rd March 2019, there are 50 ethnic minority communities in Bangladesh. The 2011 population census included only 27 ethnic communities according to the Small Ethnic Minority Culture Institution Act 2010. And the total population of ethnic community was 1.5 million. In 2019, the government made revision of the gazette and found 50 ethnic communities. In 2022, the government made revision of the gazette and found 50 ethnic communities and total population of 1.6 million. Indigenous Peoples Organization claimed that more than 3 million ethnic communities live in Bangladesh. Lack of disaggregated data on ethnic communities is a big challenge. Ethnic communities are one of the most marginalized and vulnerable groups in the country. Historically, they have been facing multiple discrimination, exclusion, and violation of human rights. They are regarded as one of the vulnerable segment of the society. Lack of participation of ethnic communities in development combines with the loss of access to land and resources have in many cases marginalized them. The rights of indigenous people have been progressively given more attention by the UN system. Yet indigenous people continue to be left behind and suffer disappropriately from climate change, environmental degradation, high level of poverty, poor access to education, health, and broader human rights violation. The UN Parliament Forum on Indigenous Issues is a subsidiary body of the UN Economic and Social Council, established by the General Assembly in 2000. It has mandate to discuss 6 indigenous issues related to economic and social development: cultural, the environmental, education, health, and human rights. The UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, terming the first session of the UN Parliament Forum on Indigenous Issue in 2002, historic, proclaimed to the world's indigenous people, we have a home at the United Nations. The Millennium Development Goals and the related indicators did not address the situation of indigenous peoples. And there is a risk that in SDGs 2, they may again be left behind in special measures are taken into the implementation and review processes for the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The Education Policy 2010 and the Women Development Policy 2011 recognize indigenous people issues. The 8th five-year plan in Bangladesh promoting prosperity and fostering inclusiveness included ethnic minority issue as the ethnic communities in Bangladesh are the most deprived of economic, social, culture, and political rights, mainly due to their ethnic status. The 5-year plan recognized the lack of comprehensive understanding of the problems of the ethnic communities. In the strategy for ethnic population, this plan stated that the government is committed to ensuring social, economic, and political rights, fundamental human rights, and social security, while enabling tribal people to retain their social, culture, and traditional identities. Ethnic minorities are one of the most vulnerable and marginalized communities in the country. Social, economic, and political exclusion made them too vulnerable to stand for their fundamental freedom and human rights. With a support and positive attitude of minority community towards ethnic minority community cannot survive with dignity. Government, UN agencies, development partners, civil society, NGO, media, and other stakeholders need to come forward to address indigenous issues, including economic and social development, education, health, culture, and human rights. Here, I give you some key recommendations, which are actually came from the field, are given below. Support for capacity building of ethnic communities and their organization to advocate and claim for their rights. Ensure meaningful participation of ethnic communities in the formulation and implementation of the local and national plans like SDGs, NAP, NDC, etc. Support ethnic community, youth, and women for income generating activities, especially for vocational training and skill development. Support strengthen traditional ethnic community organizations for building linkage, relationship, and network with government administration, local electric bodies, and other stakeholders. Support for agriculture, water, and alternative livelihoods. Participation of ethnic minority is decision-making process should be a key point. Promoting the scope for meaningful and regular dialogue between ethnic communities and government officials, civil society, media, and other key stakeholders are crucial. That's all from me. Thank you.
Dear Rova, thank you so very much for your very valuable presentation. We have seen how the ethnic communities are affected by climatic hazards and how their basic human rights are being not being properly addressed by our national policies. Thank you very much for your presentation. And now we'll be moving on to the panel discussion. First, I would like to invite Dr. Dijen Mullik. Sir, if you can kindly elaborate, what would be the approaches for institutionalizing indigenous knowledge on adaptation, practiced by the ethnic communities.
Thank you, moderator, Dr. Mukherjee, and fellow panelists, the presenter. It's my pleasure to speak in this very thriving community who has interest in climate change adaptation, locally led adaptation, gender responsive adaptation, and then need for adaptation of the ethnic community. All these are linked, I think. And Rafapa, she has made a very good contribution in this discourse. I think she made a very illustrated presentation covering all these key issues: the population, diversity, livelihood, then cultural aspect, and also climate change impact and vulnerability. So I'd like to thank C3R, BRAC University team for making this interesting study and this presentation in the global Garbashana Global Conference, which is also focusing on locally led adaptation. I think she has mentioned the NAP process, which has also looked into the impact vulnerability of the poor women and indigenous community in Bangladesh, living in all these climate hotspots. And I was also involved in this process with C3R and CGIS. So I know that the effort, the need was very useful to consult with the minority communities, the ethnic communities in CH2, in coastal area, Shakira, also in Nauga. And that came out with the impact and vulnerability. She has already mentioned rightly that ethnic community largely depend on the natural resource for their livelihood. And you know that these are being affected by climate change, all the climatic stresses, drought, heat stress, change in season, and then extreme events are affecting the natural resource base, its compactness, productivity, and ecosystem service that they are using for their livelihood. So it is time to really assess more rigorously with both participatory and standard quantitative method, how these are affecting their traditional livelihood and what are their adaptation needs. We got some sense from NAP that the process has already identified key adaptation approaches or key adaptation options, particularly in small agriculture, water, health, and resource management like fisheries, biodiversity conservation. These are the key area for adaptation, both for local community as well as for the ethnic communities. And now the question of institutional support or institutional arrangement, how this could be recognized, all these important adaptation options of the vulnerable community, ethnic communities in agriculture, water, health, natural resource management, conservation. This will cover both community-based adaptation as well as the emerging concept of ecosystem-based adaptation. These are to be recognized and supported by a range of institutions from national level to regional and local level. NAP has also worked on this the institutional mandate, role, and responsibility for planning and implementation of adaptation option, both for sectoral and community levels, including the poor and ethnic groups. And these institution at the national level include ministry, departments. I think the key ministries and department would be beside this climate change. I mean, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. There are also a set of ministries and departments like agriculture, water, health, women and children, social welfare. They should take up this adaptation options of the community, ethnic community, and integrate those in their sectoral development plan, in their sectoral adaptation plan. That has not yet done in the country. The NAP has included the adaptation options in 6 thematic area, which are around 113. But I don't see very much location specific and ethnic community responsive adaptation options in the broader thematic areas of NAP. So it is time for us, the government institution, research institution, to really develop local level activities of as many 50 ethnic communities across the country in CST, in Plainland. So they need to be consulted further for local level, locally related adaptation with their participation implementation of local related adaptation for ethnic community. And I think government is very keen, but it is, we have to do a lot of work to make this institution, national, regional, and local, to work for the poorest of the poor, the ethnic community. And the civil institution, they can also work as local organization to convince national government
Dr. Mullik, we can't hear you. Nipa, if you can please take care of this issue. We can't hear you properly.
I think he has some internet connectivity issue. Dada, Dijanda, can you hear us? Or we can move to the next panelist, Dada.
Sorry, I think I was out of the. Intervention at this stage. Should I continue, Nandanda? Can you hear me?
Please continue. Now we can hear you. I think others as well.
I'll finish it. Yes. I think the policy, climate change policy and other has focus on developing ethnic community, protecting their rights, language, and other things. But there is a need for understanding all this, for reviewing all these policies and strategies with climate change lens, how these are affecting ethnic community and what are their needs in the current context and also in future. We know that temperature is rising. We have already experienced 2 degrees right now, by 2030, and the whole world is preparing for 3 degrees Celsius. So we have to do policy review and then institutional involvement, engagement of the national and local level institution, traditional institution. I would also request the ethnic community to come out and work with the local government, involving their traditional organizations in this new horizon of climate change planning and implementation. And the challenge is that to build capacity of the institution for integration of climate change, which is a new thing, along with their right, livelihood, and other things, adaptation, integration in the local resource allocation, and also good governance at the local level, because we also experience some news and some the marginalized excluded in local planning and implementation of development work. But we request the local government and also the ethnic organization to work collectively to should be given to this poorest group, ethnic group for their supporting service that would be needed for adaptation. In this process, climate information service and also the existing assistance support would be needed for adaptation in disaster risk region. These are not adequately distributed to the community because of the body politics and other institutional limitations. But I think all the local government and all other actors should come together to ensure good governance at the local level in the hub where these ethnic communities are living in stress condition because of the social exclusion. Now climate change is also putting greater impact on their livelihood. So let us work with this ethnic community who are facing the adverse consequences of climate change. So along with government, all other actors, including NGOs, right-based organizations should come together and work with this community at the local level, regional level, and also at the national level. I would also request the CST board who has their own development plan, nature conservation and other issues, but they can also come up and work with the national coordination committee of the NAP to put forward their concern and their demand, so that we need a both top-down and bottom-up approach to resolve this most vulnerable group, ethnic community, and within the ethnic community, the women are more vulnerable. So all the institutional actors should work together, and then it will help them to reduce their risk and vulnerability and participate in the development and climate change or climate resilient development process. Thank you very much for your attention to my deliberation.
Thank you, Dr. Mullik. Your discussion was really insightful. And now I would like to move on to Professor Sharmin Nilormi, if I may ask, what issues of ethnic communities need to be considered while we formulate climate resilient livelihood options for local and national plans and policies? Up to you, madam. Professor Sharmin Nilormi, please. Can you hear me? Probably we are facing some technical issues here. Nipa, can we move on to next panelist?
Yes,
And in the
Dada,
meantime,
we
you
can
can, yeah, in the
I
meantime, if you
think
can
I
resolve this
think I
issue.
can
Okay, she's
unmute.
here.
I could unmute.
Oh, finally.
Finally, thank you, Dr. Mukherjee.
Thank you, Abba.
Sorry, from my end, it was a technical issues. Thank you, BRAC 3CER and Rofa and her team. Congratulations to address an issue where the climate change research doesn't actually touch upon much. So there is a huge research gap where BRAC 3CER is exploring, and they have been working on it. They have presented it in an excellent way. Climate change has long been considered a critical factor in the disruption of the long-lasting nature-society relationship, and the cause of extraordinary changes in the traditional economy, culture, social structure, and interpersonal relationships. Globally, people have been facing numerous challenges due to climate change. They strive to survive in a growing turbulent environment. However, the effects of climate change vary across society. Not only across society, but also across places and culture. It is reflected in the broader literature of climate change and other social literature, showing that people living in the interior and economically well-off countries have been less affected by the harsh climatic conditions. In contrast, changes in environmental conditions severely affect coastal communities, islanders, agriculture-based rural societies, and more specifically, ethnic minorities and indigenous communities in developing countries. They suffer more because they still have a nature-centric life and possess limited resources to build a resistance against sudden climatic shocks and the continuing alterations in their surroundings and the environment. Women become the most affected victims among these communities due to their secondary socioeconomic position, nature-oriented livelihoods, and fundamentally lack of power to challenge patriarchal impositions and control over their marginalized lives. So as we have a pre-perceived concept that indigenous community, they all do have matriarchal society and women are very much empowered, that's a rhetoric, and that myth needs to be changed within the mainstream people and the researcher as well. However, many scholars argue that indigenous women inherit valuable knowledge of their surrounding environment and hold a strong fighting spirit. These attributes enable them to cope with and gradually adapt to climate change. Besides these, most of the indigenous societies have a connection with mainstream society that we often forget and ignore. And these communities have been under the influence of the market economy. And development interventions for a long time, this connectivity permits indigenous women to embrace rapid changes, enriching their environmental knowledge. Not only knowledge, but also enriching their resource base, inbuilt capacities. Such arguments do not only refer to women's innate power or ability to change, it also relates us to the changing indigenous societies. The changing women environment nexus therein and the moving gender roles and relationships resulting directly from the climate change imposed challenges and the associated socioeconomic development. Against this backdrop, we need to acknowledge that this process is complicated. The complicated changes in the traditional forest-based and nature-based community brought by the constant pressure of climate threats, regulations, laws, and policies, and the market economy. This process actually generates new forms of conflict and tension, livelihood and food security, disruption of cultural continuity, and erosion of social cohesion and self-worth. So having all these on the plate, there has been impacts focusing on gender roles, gender relationships, and power hierarchies that we need to take care when we prepare a climate change adaptation programs. That programs which aim to enhance climate change adaptability through For example, livelihood diversification and disaster preparation. As we all know, we do have very good network of cyclone shelters and cyclone warning system in the coastal belt of Bangladesh. And we also do know and must acknowledge the exclusion of ethnic minority people in time of pre-disaster, pre-cyclone time to have shelters in those cyclone shelters. So exclusion is very much there. So participation in these programs is vital. Participation by indigenous community and women, these are critical, not only to learn climate change adaptation skills, but also to boost leadership abilities and to cultivate networks. And that might improve personal and economic standings. And these networks mean, connecting these communities to mainstream people. To investigate access and participation across social groups, there has been no intersectionality framework right now, which can be applied to explore the ways gender and social categories such as caste and ethnicity interact in shaping women's participation in climate change adaptation program. And if you look in our recent adaptation plan of action, this intersectionality framework is also not been practiced there. The intersectionality framework originated in critical race theory and has been developed in feminist scholarship to combat the inadequacies of feminism and anti-racism, to fully explain the experiences of marginalized women. Instead of focusing on one or two oppressive categories, intersectionality focuses on the interwoven nature of these categories and how they can mutually strengthen or weaken each other. So I urge BRAC 3CR and in this through this audience, the global audience and the researchers, that let us work on that intersectionality framework, which will be inclusive for all marginalized groups, including ethnic women population. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Nilomi. The way you explained how social and interpersonal relationship is shaping their culture and how the communities are differentially affected by the climate change impacts, especially particularly the women, due to lack of power and exclusion and lack of participation. Those issues are really important for shaping the way forward. So thank you very much again. And now I would like to invite my next panelist, Ms. Snigdha Sarkar, who is a member of the ethnic community that C3R is researching on. And ma'am, if you can please briefly describe the impact of climate change on youth within ethnic communities. And as a youth, how would you like to involve yourself in reducing that impact of climate change? Snigdha, up to you.
Thank you, sir, to give me this opportunity. Can you hear me, sir?
Snigdha, we can hear you properly, but I'll really appreciate if you can turn on your video so that everyone can see you.
Sir, I'm sorry, I don't.
Oh, okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Myself, Snigdha Sarkar. I am from Panchbibi, Jaipurhat, Bangladesh, and I belong to Malo ethnic community. I have got the privilege to study in Rabindra University, Bangladesh, in sociology department as a fourth-year student. I had come to about this burning issue of climate change first from class at my university. The severity of climate change impacts around the world and also future climate change impacts shock me to the ground. As we know, ethnic communities are one of the most vulnerable populations in terms of social, economical, as well as environmental aspects. We are dependent on renewable natural resources mostly, which are at risk due to climate change. The region I grew up in is extremely vulnerable to climate change. Different climate induced hazards such as drought and floods are causing loss of livelihood as assets. So people are moving to have alternative livelihood options. Crop failure due to erratic rainfall is creating shortage of food. There is also water crisis. We are mainly dependent on groundwater. Understanding the current trend, I can say there will be severe food shortages and water crisis in our community in the future. Unfortunately, the people from our community are not out dead. These incidents are happening due to climate change. They are trying to adapt these negative impacts with our inherited indigenous knowledge and techniques, which are not adequate to combat climate change impacts. The impacts of climate change will be more severe in future. We have to prepare ourselves to fight this challenge. As a youth, I have to carry the responsibility to make our people aware of this climate change and build a climate resilient community. I'm working to convey the resources effectively to the community to combat this climate threat, which resources are accessible to me. I would like to organize training sessions where our people may know the adapting techniques from experts, which help them to listen crop failure. And also harvesting rainwater can solve our water crisis. Making existing livelihoods resilient to climate change impacts will reduce displacement. So I believe if we can embrace our indigenous adapting techniques and knowledge with proper training and guidance from climate experts, we'll must be able to build a climate resilient community with our own heritage techniques. So this is all about from me. Thank you, sir. Again.
Thank you, Snigdha. Just give me a second, please. Thank you, Snigdha, for your presentation, and you properly explained how drought is causing loss of livelihood and the reason why your community members are shifting to alternative livelihood options. And you correctly predicting that how this climate change impact is will be causing a shortage of food and water crisis in the future. I really liked your point how you focused on raising the awareness and how to lead towards developing a climate resilient society to address these issues. Thank you, Snigdha, for your for your views. And now I would like to invite Mr. Dhuritri Kumar Sarkar, um, Deputy Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Mr. Sarkar, as an official of the ministry, can you please briefly point out how you emphasized the issue of ethnic communities in the preparation of the National Adaptation Plan, which your ministry has recently published? Thank you.
Thank you. At first, I want to convey my gratitude and thanks to C3ER BRAC University for organizing this webinar. And I thank Dr. Nandan Mukherjee for giving me the chance to speak. And at the same time, I also convey my thanks to Ms. Rofa Khanum for her beautiful presentation and elaborate description what sort of problems or impediments the ethnic communities are facing. At the same time, she also described what could be the probable solution and what is required to do now. As Snigdha was telling, actually the ethnic communities in different parts of Bangladesh, they are facing different sort of problems. And in view of climate change issues, their sufferings are going to be severe to severe. Obviously, for the ethnic communities, climate change issues is not a simple environmental change. It is actually a threat for their life, their livelihoods, social structure, traditional knowledge, and culture also. So, obviously, we need to address the issues and take the views from those people, especially the ethnic communities who are facing the problems and what could be the solution. You have told about the National Adaptation Plan. Bangladesh government formulated the National Adaptation Plan and we submitted this NAP on 31st October 2022 to the UNFCCC. And it was prepared after around a long 2 years of tedious works. And you know, in this NAP, in this National Adaptation Plan, it has been given utmost importance to the ethnic communities because the main principle and the main beauty of this National Adaptation Plan is inclusiveness and leaving no one behind. Not only the ethnic communities, the gender issues, the youth, the persons with disabilities, all are taken inside this National Adaptation Plan. And you know, during preparing this National Adaptation Plan, we have done more than 100 focus group discussions and KIIs in obviously in the hill districts of Chittagong area and northern part of Bangladesh and other Sylhet region people, where it was possible in our focus group discussions, representative from ethnic communities were present. And we have taken their views. They have given their ideas, what is their vulnerabilities and what problem they are facing and what could be the probable solutions and probable adaptation initiatives. And we have taken these views for preparing the adaptation plan because we know that our people knows better what will be the best solution for their problem. The hill people knows better what is their vulnerabilities and what will be the best adaptive measures. At the same time, our coastal people knows better what is their problem and what we need to do for solution of those. So for this, we have taken the views of these ethnic peoples during preparing and also solutions from there, what could be, and that had been properly included in this National Adaptation Plan. One example I can give, in our National Adaptation Plan, in the chapter 3, in adaptation part, there is a example from the hill areas. There was one village named Zurasuri of Rangamati district. Actually, the people of this area, they are dependent on village common forest, and these village common forests give them food, the stream waters like this. But these people are facing the problem, acute problem of water. At the same time, with the help of one project from UNDP, the ethnic communities of this area, they took the lead. These people took the training sort of or knowledge about the vulnerabilities and the assessment of vulnerabilities and how to make the adaptation measures. So decision and initiatives came from those ethnic peoples, and they float one solar powered tube oils, and this tube oils was run by 12 solar panels. So those people made their solution how to adapt to the adversities. And this is one example from the National Adaptation Plan. And in this light, or in this knowledge from all those discussions, we prepared our NAP. And in the National Adaptation Plan, we have formulated the adaptation initiatives, and there are 113 adaptation programs. And these adaptation programs, if you see, there is a strong emphasis on the ethnic communities and for solving the problem of these ethnic communities. And here we have included the ecosystem management of these hill areas, the hill and the hill management, and the conservation of forests and watershed of this area. So I can also tell about another document of Bangladesh government. We have prepared the Mujib Climate Prosperity Plan. And in this plan also, we have given emphasis to the people from all strata of life and in various parts of the country, in various geographical location, and from the different communities. And in this document, also the ethnic people has given a very good emphasis for solving their problem. And at the same time, I can tell in this NAP, not only during the formulation of this NAP also given an advice to make a special sector action plan for the for gender, youth, persons with disabilities, and ethnic people to reduce their adversities or take them to the adaptation measures. And at the end, I can tell this NAP also telling that not only in the preparation phase, when we are going for the implementation of this NAP, in this for this implementation, we are preparing different institutional arrangements and the different committees for better implementation. And that NAP suggests that people from representative from ethnic communities could be included in these implementation phases, so that the voice and experiences of these ethnic people could come better in the implementation area. And we can be in a position to the better implementation of this NAP, and at the same time solving the problems or the ethnic community, the problems they are facing from the climate change issues, that could be better addressed. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Dhrutya Kumar Sarkar. It was really good when you mentioned that principle of developing the NAP, that leaving no one behind. And we're also delighted to see how the NAP preparation process was guided by more than 100 focus group discussions, where even and KI with the ethnic communities, and how you mainstream their views in the NAP preparation process. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to move to our final panelist, Professor Ainul Nishat. Sir, can you please give your valuable insight on the research findings? Because we heard from Rofa that you have been guiding this research, and in addition to that, if you can draw some policy recommendations. Thank you, sir. to Professor Anand Nishad, please.
Thank you very much. And good afternoon from Dhaka. And for Nandan, I think it must be good morning. And depending on the location where the listener is, let me offer the appropriate salutation. I'm very happy that C3ER is conducting this study, and the approach that has been adopted is to go in depth, develop proper understanding. Bangladesh is a small country geographically, but population is very high. 170, 180 million, depending on who is counting it. We may add another, say, 10 to 20 million of the people who are living outside the Bangladesh border. But in one sense, the country is like homogeneous, both culturally, behavior-wise, natural resource management. Basis is agronomy, agriculture. But on the other hand, this country, small ethnic groups, small ethnic societies are there. What is their number? I didn't know. They say that there could be 50 plus ethnic groups. So one of the important output, which is not related to climate change, but that C3R is providing, is to develop a better understanding on the ethnic groups in the country. We all talk about the Chakmas and the Marmas and the Tripuras and the Boms and the Pankhas, Garo and Shautal. These are some of the major ethnic groups. In terms of population compared with the nature, they are very small. And total of this 50 or plus few more would be less than 1% of the country. But in terms of total number and the NGOs or civil society workers working with this group claim that the total population could be 3%. Now, if it is, say, let me compromise, it's 2%, which means we are talking about 3.4 million people. Globally, I'm sure there would be 60 or 70 countries or 50 countries whose total population is less than 2 million. So we are not talking about a small group of people in Bangladesh, but we are talking about a significant large population in global standard. Having said that, as Sharmin Nilormi has very clearly stated, some of these groups are patriarchal, some of them are matriarchal, they are dependent on nature, they are dependent on Zoom cultivation, they used to be dependent on hunting or fishing. In the coastal belt, they have their different types of livelihood. And some of these small ethnic groups maybe were brought to what is now Bangladesh, maybe 150 or 200 years back by the British rulers to work as laborers, like in tea gardens or in the Sundarban area, clear the forest. So we need to understand their livelihood. Each of them had their own livelihood pattern, own style of food, own way of managing natural disaster. Like we all talk about the resort in Potuakhali, which is prone to cyclone, and the local communities, the Rakhines, had their own high-raised platform called Tonghor to face the cyclone. So there are a lot of the indigenous, I will say these small minority groups, they have their own livelihood. Some of these groups, some of these small ethnic groups are based on the caste system, like the Telis, they were the oil expellers. Like there are many fishermen group. So what is happening, I'm coming to climate change, as the nature is changing, maybe it is going to affect them significantly in their livelihood pattern. See the Chakmas and the other people, Marmas, and they are dependent on Zoom cultivation. And Zoom is totally rain-fed agriculture. If the rainfall pattern changes, their harvest would change. I am aware some of the business houses in Dhaka are trying to help them with their giving better price for their product because they are natural product without any fertilizer or anything. Like if you go to a major departmental store in Dhaka, you have one corner product from Jhum cultivation. But I don't think that is good enough. And there is another major problem for the people living in the hill tracts, the hill people, also in Rajshahi, drinking water. The watershed has become unproductive. They do not store the moisture as they used to do. And to collect water, one has to come down maybe 500 or 1,000 feet or 200 feet to the ground level where they used to collect water from the chora or a small rivulets. So, or the small, natural small rivulets. So the point I'm trying to make is one of the things we will try to do is prioritize what are the attentions they need immediately and in the long term. Of course, income generation program has to be there, but one of the immediate need is drinking water and sanitation, and obviously and the other one is natural disaster management. Short duration heavy rainfall is forcing them to face a lot of landslides in the coastal belt, increase in salinity, more health problem. So maybe one of the way we will present this study is to, based on the climatic hazard, identify the area where that would be affected, which ROFA has already done, and then the various communities who would be affected and what type of solution. But main thing is income generation program. All over the world, the small tribal community enjoy one facility or privilege, which is getting involved in ecotourism. Our hill tracts, our Shautal area, or the Garo area is Madhupur or Sunamganj or North Bangladesh. There are lots of opportunity for ecotourism. With the economy of Bangladesh going up, tourism is coming more or less a good practice, and people would like to go to the local community, and we can enjoy. I do want the tribal communities to move up the ladder in the economic condition, but their traditional facilities and style could be converted into opportunities for ecotourism. The other thing I would like to mention here, we need to pay attention to that. The vector-borne diseases are going to increase, not only in the coastal belt, but also in the hill tracts. The hill tract area was known for cerebral malaria, highly prone to this particular disease. With increase in mosquito population, this sort of problem may come up. So as the focus group discussions are being made and KII and GDs are being made, maybe we need to do a few follow-up studies. But my last point would be, there are very small groups. The population of some of the groups that I mentioned, about whom we know, the Chakmas, Marmas, Tripura, Bom, and Pankhya, and Garo, and Shautal, etc., possibly unknown, but there are small ethnic group having less than 500 or 1,000 population, and they are located in dispersed group, not in one area, and their traditional values, traditional livelihood, etc., are definitely at risk due to climate change. So I appreciate the comments made by some of the designated discussant, and we need to, shall I say, polish our strategy or final report based on these comments. That's what we are going to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Nishat. The way you portrayed the severity of this issue, that this 3.4 million people's community is not a small number. We shall not consider that as a small number considering the position of Bangladesh. And the way you portrayed the severity of climate change in terms of the rising frequency and magnitude of um, weather extremes like slow, short duration heavy rainfalls, and the propagation of vector-borne diseases. We also agree that moving up the economic ladders is important, but they shall not sacrifice their indigenous livelihood options. Thank you very much for your insight. I'll come back to you again during the question and answer session. Now, I would like to invite Ms. Sharmin Nahan Nipa to conduct the question and answer session. Based on that, I would conclude the session I want to conclude the session just 5 minutes before 6 o'clock. So, Nipa, up to you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So before starting the question and answer session, I would like to thank all the distinguished panelists for sharing their insightful thoughts related to this session. And also I'd like to thank you, Mr. Moderator, for moderating the session so lively. And now I'm going to open the floor for open discussion or question answer session. Dear participants or respected guests, if you have any question for the panelists or keynote presenters, you may write in the chat box, or you can raise your hand so that we can unmute yourself and you can convey your question to us. And we have already received 3 questions from the question answer session box. And one question is from Ms. Tahsina Tabassum. I'm going to read it out. As we have come to know from the presentation, people from ethnic communities are migrating to urban areas. As an urban planner, I'd like to know what can be done to utilize their indigenous skills to provide them alternative livelihoods in urban areas. My question is to Dr. Nishat. So, sir, will you please Sir, will you please
Thank you.
answer this question?
Thank you. I think my mind was unmuted. Okay. Thank you. I think I have more or less responded to your question while I had the floor a few minutes back. Why they come to the urban area? First, livelihood security. Second, food security. Third, impact of natural disaster. Fourth is poor living condition. Do you recall 2 years back, there was severe food shortage in Bandarban, and government had to use Air Force and Army to drop the food because due to drought and also untimely heavy rainfall, their Jum product, that is the food they produce through shifting cultivation, was totally lost. And in certain thanas, certain area, they didn't have any food. They were starving. Some newspapers reported it. So they should be under the radar of the government for disaster management ministry. If there is food shortage, if there is a drought, there is flood, landslide, cyclone, they should be given full support. Problem is there are small communities and politically they are not powerful. They are marginalized people. When relief and support goes to any community, obviously these minority communities do not get the necessary support that they should get. So special programs should be made for these ethnic small groups. Now we have the disaster management committee in every union, every thana, and we have data or who are the needy people to the ward level approved by the union parishad. So we should have good database about the indigenous communities. We should have good database who are dependent on nature and who suffer from nature. So food security must be ensured. Together with that, we should ensure water supply and sanitation. In the choras in Rangamati and Bandarban and Khagrachori, the hills used to produce water round the year, I'm talking about 100 years back. But with the degradation of watershed, their water supply in the dry months are almost nil. So you should go for watershed management and protection of the slopes as well as the ground, so that they can have what we call base flow. Their living conditions can be assisted, because they may fall in many areas among the ultra poor. I had the opportunity to talk to some of the mundas in Satkhira, and they don't own land, same as many places in hill tracts. The land ownership is disputed by the local Bangladeshi communities or Bengali communities. So they should be provided support so they can hold on to the land on which they had been dependent on years after year. But the point I made about ecotourism, about the tourism that is prevalent nowadays, we like to go to a waterfall, to a forest area, to a nature park, and this should be facilitated, and the local community may act as guide. And for that, their education level, they should be properly trained. They have their own cultural program like dances and other things. Now, 1 or 2 program in television is not good enough. When the indigenous people are going to the local, their cultural heritage should be upheld, should be held high, and that should be one mechanism of income generation. But as I said, I do want their income level, economic condition to improve. I do not think that they should live in their traditional living style and they would remain poor and not properly educated. I want them to grow with rest of Bangladesh, their economic condition, their food security, their livelihood security, their disaster risks related security should be as strong as an ordinary Bangladeshi of Bengali origin. Thank you.
Thank you, Nisha sir, for mentioning what needs to be done to reduce the climate change vulnerability of this particular ethnic community. Now we have received another question from Mr. Shoaib Chaudhuri, and he says, as a climate change and development worker, I have a question for the panelists. Why are the people of the tribal community is not given equal importance as the Bengali speakers? So any one of you can answer the question, or I can request Professor Nilomi to answer this particular question. Why are the people of the tribal communities not given equal importance as the Bengali speakers?
One is simple mathematics and the number of probability. So as the ethnic minority community, the number of that community people are quite small with regards to mainstream Bengali population. So if you have point the probability, then having a panelist from that community is much less, compared to having a community, having a panelist from Bengali community. So that's the issue. If we consider it's a level playing field, but we all know that it's not a level playing field. And having said that, we do have very good, knowledgeable colleagues from indigenous communities who have a good understanding on climate change, who have good understanding on natural-based resources, ecosystem-based livelihoods, because it's their life and livelihoods. But it's the very mindset that when we share a panel or design a panel, we often, ignore because of that mindset that, and then we actually think that we, the mainstream Bengali people, knows all the problems, having a number of FGDs, having a number of KIRs. So it's, I think it's a good question, and there must be representatives from ethnic minority communities to express their experiences, express their aspirations, and express their understanding. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Nilormi. So I'm going to move into another question. And the question is from Shumaita Marjia. So she says, as ethnic communities are solely dependent on natural resources surrounding them, what can be their alternative source of safe drinking water if there comes any scarcity of water due to climate change? As I said earlier, any of you can answer this question, or I can request Dr. Nishad can answer this question because you have this specific expertise. Sir? Sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, question is by?
By Shumaita Marjia.
Shumaita Marjia. Let me try to find it in the question and answer box.
Okay.
No, I don't find it. Is not in the question and answer box.
Sir, I can see the question in the question and answer box. She says, what can be the alternative source of safe drinking water if there comes any scarcity of water due to climate change?
Okay. On the short term and in long term, I will have in two ways. In the long term, we can push for watershed management that will increase the dry season flow, but that will take 30, 40 years. But in the meantime, we can build some cross dams, small dams to store the monsoon water, dig on the riverbed. So the issue, there are two issues. One is the supply of water. Second is to collect it for the people who live high up in the hill. So we need to develop some solar pumps to pump water from the ground level. Is a big challenge. Like in the Rohingya area, I have seen when the Rohingyas moved from Myanmar to Bangladesh, many of these sources of water, these chora, these small rivulets, dried up. So it's a very valid and difficult question. People have to go down the hill to collect water in the nearby, whatever the source of water is. Groundwater is not very reliable in the whole area, but government may go for some putting up groundwater tubers, because the tubers have to pass through some shell or some rock. But by trial and error, possibly a good network of groundwater supplying tubers may be developed. So I recognize this is a major problem, and we should take the problem very seriously and provide drinking water, because I personally believe access to safe drinking water is an element of human right. And to protect the human right of the marginalized community and small groups, the group they do not have sufficient voice, the state should come forward and make a special arrangement. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for answering this question. So we have received another two questions from the audience, and these are all policy-related questions. And I'm going to request Mr. Dharitri Kumar Sarkar to respond it. So I'm going to read it out. So ethnic communities are discriminated and excluded significantly from political, social, and economic empowerment. Are there any metrics in Bangladesh to show the magnitude of such exclusion? And what aspects do development projects and programs need to consider in their design to empower the communal and individual agency of indigenous people and especially women. So another question is, apart from climate change impacts, deforestation also gearing up the water crisis, particularly in CHT area. Have there any specific initiative from the government to stop deforestation in CHT? Or how is the existing afforestation program going on? Mr. Dhuritri Kumar Sarkar.
To answer the second question,
Yes.
we have the hills and we have the hill forests, and obviously for the hill people and the ethnic people, these hills and hill forests are highly important, because these people also sometimes suffer from the landslide, and we have lost some lives and obviously the livelihood. We have lost some lives of these hill areas through the landslide. So for thwarting this landslide also, there is the great role of hill forests. And in these hill areas, the government is many ways trying to take the afforestation and reforestation program. And under the forest department, many afforestation program are going on. And at the same time, the government has taken the initiatives of creating awareness among the people of these hill areas for conservation of the hill forests and the wildlife as well. So I think through this implementation of this afforestation and reforestation program, the hills will be in a better condition, and it will give a very good life, better life and livelihood to the hill peoples. And if I request to repeat the first question.
So ethnic communities are discriminated and excluded significantly from political, social, and economic empowerment. Are there any metrics in Bangladesh to show the magnitude of such exclusion? And what aspects do development projects and programs need to consider in their design to empower the communal and individual agency of indigenous people, especially women?
Actually, if I request Dr. Ainun sir for answering the first part of this question, and in the second part, I can tell, obviously women needed the good importance for the betterment of the nation and the life. And you know, when I was telling about the our programs for climate change issues, at that time, repeatedly I have told about the gender inclusion. The government in all its plans and programs as policies, giving the utmost importance to the gender action issues. Not only in the hill areas, throughout the country, we need address the gender issues and afford the gender respective issues. And you know, for your information, I want to add that the government has a gender action plan from 2013, and at this moment, the government is updating this plans. The gender action plans is being updated, and through this different programs for the betterment of the gender issues are taking place by the government. So I think this is the answer from me for the second part, and I am requesting my respected sir, Dr. Ainun Nishat, for answering the first part of the question. Thank you.
Thank you. If I understood the question, is that what sort of policy interventions and other things the government is going to go for supporting the small ethnic minority communities, etc. I would like to recall the comments made by Sharmin Nilormi. The whole thing is a question of mathematics, which is the sheer number distribution. Being a small minority communities, their voices are mostly unheard. And as Rofa has presented, the government has recently, not recently, 2011, 12 years back, amended the constitution of the country to give voice to those marginalized community. The government has set up a separate ministry on hill tracts and ethnic communities and other things. So there is a state minister or a minister in charge, and there is a special secretariat, and development partners are equally concerned and equally, shall I say, forthcoming. UNDP is having many research projects to support the ethnic community, especially in the hilly areas. But tragedy is they are not being as effective as we would love to see them. But as I said, new opportunities are coming up, but risks are also coming up through climate change. So I'm sure the Ministry of Hill Tracts, the other agencies on these small communities would develop effective plan. One thing I would disagree slightly with Sharmin Nilormi. He said there are a lot of knowledgeable people among the traditional tribal communities or the small ethnic group who have lots of expertise on climate change issues. My personal feeling is, first, I apologize, I have not interacted with them much, but my understanding is based from the newspaper articles and other things. They still raise the very traditional issue, and they do not form a force that is necessary to change the mindset of the traditional Bangladesh mindset to come out, take new look, a fresh look into the problem of the minority communities and come out with solution. Sharmin Nilormi is pointing at the right direction, is that they should make noise, they should come forward. And somebody put a question in the question box that how their knowledge level can be enhanced unless we have the proper education system through their own mother tongue or language. My understanding is the government is pushing in that direction. Separate books are being printed for the major ethnic group. That is why I pleaded that we pay attention to the bigger groups. Among the 1%, 2% total population, there are some big groups who are significant in number, but then there are very small groups, and their needs should also be ignored. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nishad, Mr. Dhoitra Kumar Sharkar for answering the question. So as we have very limited time in our hand, I'd like to request Dr. Nandan Mukherjee, the moderator of our today's session, to conclude today's session. But before that, I'm going to request our moderator to answer another question. And we have received this question from Jalabayu Porishad Gaibandha. The question is, the level of education among the tribal population is very low. Because of this, their climate awareness is low. They also cite language problems as reasons for low education rates. How it is possible to increase the rate of education among the tribals by adding their own language? Dr. Mukherjee.
Thank you very much, Nipa, for asking this question. This question is particularly important because without proper education, formal education, I must say, because I don't believe, and I also agree with Professor Nishad that they are not uneducated. They are educated with their cultural heritage and with their indigenous practices, but probably we are talking about the formal education here, where they will be properly introduced with language, Bangla and other languages, and they can be trained in the formal academic stream. That is very important, and the way we can do that is I'm going to come back with a number of recommendations that was gathered in this session. that I heard from our distinguished panelists and also from the presentation of ROFA. So I think that those recommendations will cover this, cover the answer to this question. Before that, I already I can see that Dr. Dijen Mullik has raised his hand to address some of the issues. Dr. Mullik, please.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mukherjee. Just to share a bit of information, in addition to Professor Nishad about this political and social economic empowerment issue, that question was raised. I think there are two government documents. One is Small Ethnic Community Planning Framework, and another is Bangladesh Government Social Safety Guard Policy Statement. This has some reference about the disempowerment or empowerment needed for this excluded group or ethnic community. If not, there are always analysis of magnitude of exclusion, but I'm sure there are some analysis on these issues that may help us to understand the need for empowerment of this community for protection of their rights. I have two other small issues I can share. One is there is concern about the social cultural rights as well as loss of their indigenous knowledge for agriculture, forest management, and there are initiatives for understanding why these are disappearing, what are the causes behind this modernization or political marginalization of this ethnic community. At the same time, I think we should also consider the loss and damage due to climate change. Nishad sir may agree. And there are also economic loss and damage as well as non-economic loss and damage due to climate change. It has affected stream, water, and increased salinity in water. That may affect the cultural norms or their religious practices in different ecosystems. I think we have to do more rigorous research on this non-economic loss and damage of this local community, including this ethnic community. And then how can we protect this? That is a need of the time. This is one thing. The second thing is that discussed in the earlier discussion about the institutional responsibility of implementing these adaptation options for local community, including the ethnic community. We know, we also learned from the reflection from Dr. Sharkar that NAP has included adaptation options broadly, focusing on ecosystem and ethnic groups. But it may not help unless the relevant ministries and departments like agriculture, water, and others take up these broader adaptation options and scale down to the local context and involve the local community for planning local late adaptation for protecting their rights, livelihoods, and also the disappearing their culture. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mullik. And based on all these recommendations and the presentation of ROFA, I would like to draw all of your attention in 5 key areas. First, what we learned from ROFA's presentation is the climate extremes are impacting the ethnic communities disproportionately, where women and vulnerable groups are bearing the majority of the burden. So first thing is we need some actions so that we can assess those impacts and those and their vulnerability to climate change. So my first the first takeaway from this session is we need to the government and other NGOs and other academias, everyone should work together to assess the impact of climate change on the ethnic communities. This is first one. Second one is The role of the youth is particularly important here in terms of raising awareness and building the capacity of climate resilient ethnic livelihood. So, answering to the question that was asked is education has a huge important role to play in driving the transition to the future that we want. That means a sustainable future where all the sustainable development goals are met, where we can live a better world with nature-based solutions, and we can live in harmony with nature by increasing the quality and accessibility of education and developing, and which not be very much myopic, driven by the formal practice of education that we adopted here. The indigenous community people, so they are the pioneers in adjusting and adapting to shocks of climatic extremes for centuries. So we should respect to their experiences, and we should develop the curriculums based on their knowledge, attitudes, behavior, and cultural norms towards addressing climate change. The rest of the world can see more effective and swifter and better change if we can incorporate those. Number three is third takeaway from this session is national strategies and plans. Those shall be more responsive. We have heard from Dhuritrida and from others that we have considered the issues of ethnic minorities in the preparation of national adaptation plan, but still our respondents and our audience were referring to that issue of inequality. So I think national strategies and plans shall be more responsive to ethnic minorities and with special emphasis on gender and vulnerable groups. My fourth point is participation. I'm borrowing this point from Professor Nilormi. Participation addressing the power relations and structural inequality is critical to pursue the sustainable development goals. And obviously, following Mr. Shorkar's comment, by not excluding the group behind, rather by including them and considering them as a core part of the nation. My fifth point is safeguarding. I'm sorry. The British cold is nearly bothering me a lot. So the fifth point is safeguarding the access to basic services that includes food, water, security, as well as resilience to climatic hazards is critical. So without raising their level to a decent human, to the level of decent human living, it's not possible. So I think our national policies and plans should take care of that. Sorry, it's not 5 recommendations, 6 recommendations in total. And finally, borrowing from Professor Nishat, creating the enabling environment or a level playing field so that the ethnic communities can pursue their economic development opportunities. Therefore, a clear-cut, if possible, separate national strategic intervention and development of action plan is critical here. Having said that, I would like to thank you very much, all Professor Nishad, Professor Nilomi, Dr. Malik, Mr. Sharkar, and Snigdha for sharing your views as distinguished panelists. I am thanking ROFA wholeheartedly for this outstanding initiative that C3R BRAC University has taken. And on behalf of Gobeshona and C3R, we would like to extend our sincere gratitude to all attendees for your lively participation today. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mukherjee. So before leaving, can I have one group photos? So everyone please turn on your camera so that we can take a photos. Who will take the photos, Sakib bhai?
Rofa, this is not your photo. Sorry, you are not live. What has happened to you? You have put a photograph.
Nipapa, we are taking the photo.
Okay.
Snigdha Sarkar কোথায়?
স্নিগ্ধা তোমার ক্যামেরাটা একটু অন করো প্লিজ। So all
না,
the panelists.
সিগদা অন করতে পারবে না, সে তো আগে বলেছে ওর নিশ্চয়ই কোনো একটা লিমিটেশনস আছে।
Okay.
Shall I say thank you very much?
Thank you everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
ECAT team, for organizing such an insightful event. Thank you so much, and goodbye everyone from C3R. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.